This material is not directly relevant to getting a CISM certification, but I wanted to include it in the course because I just think it's important for general knowledge and to orient you with the current situation in the world and the current issues facing security professionals. And I think the point of this course is to understand the responsibility and how it is you can take responsibility for securing people. And securing nations is a big part of it. So I'm on Mastodon, by the way. Infosec.exchange is the Mastodon server that the entire information security community fled to maybe 6 months ago when Elon took over Twitter and we could see it was being destroyed. So it is highly recommended that you join this Mastodon service. This is where you will find all the important security professionals, pretty much. And it is, anyway, so I recommend you do that. You'll see it on my homepage. And there's another, it's what I switched to instead of Twitter. All right, so the modern world of cyberwar really started with the advanced persistent threats, and the advanced persistent threats started with Google. Google expanded into China, which was highly controversial, and the CEOs of Google argued about this quite a bit among themselves, because in order to do business in China, they had to obey Chinese law, and Chinese law is very oppressive. And their big thing at Google is that all information should be indexed and available, and China requires you to conceal information. There's a whole bunch of things they will not allow people to see on the internet, like the Tiananmen Square protest to have democracy and so on, and Google had to agree to filter that stuff out to do business in China. And there was a big argument saying the issue is if we don't move into China, then somebody else will, and we will no longer be number one. We will be accepting being a second-rate company and letting somebody else be the most important in the world. And that's a question. Do you want to be a small company, less important, but more pure? Or do you want to be the biggest one in the world, used everywhere, and therefore more unprincipled, more adapting to all the crazy rules? And so they tried to expand to China, but the Chinese hacked Google. And the leaders of Google, around Christmas in 2009, the Chinese hacked Google in order to steal information from their servers to find out who was communicating with who, to find out who was conspiring against the government. And Google found out about it and got so mad that they publicly disclosed here on January 12 in 2010 that China had hacked them. Now, this had been an open secret in the security community for about 5 or 6 years. Everybody had rumors about how China is hacking everybody, but nobody had come out publicly and admitted it because they all wanted to pretend that they were the one that didn't get hacked, and they didn't want to admit they had security flaws and they were getting hacked. But Google kicked open the can of worms, and not only did they reveal that China had hacked them, they went and hacked them back and stole the data from the Chinese server that had stolen data from Google, and they found 30 other American companies' data on there, pretty much everybody you can think of, like Microsoft and Adobe and everybody. And those people had been hacked, and China had been stealing their stuff, and they didn't even know. So Google exposed this huge issue of nation-state attacks, and this became the Advanced Persistent Threat, APT1. This was Mandiant, is the company that basically invented the modern field of incident response, and they started analyzing this, and they published this report naming this APT1, Advanced Persistent Threat. Now, other kinds of hackers are like smash and grab hackers. They will just find a vulnerability in your server, come in, and do something short term, like just bring the server down, or put an insulting message on it by defacing it, or just steal the credit card numbers and run. That's one kind of attack. But the advanced persistent threats will sneak onto your system and establish persistent espionage connections and try to hide so you won't notice them, so they can continue to monitor what you're doing on your computers and keep stealing stuff for a long period of time. And that's what the Chinese did. When they hacked into Google, they put on remote control agents, Trojans, that would not call home right away. They would go to sleep for a period of time, and they put on different ones with different sleep times, up to 3 years. So you could find the malware, clean it off, make your new golden images, deploy your machines, and then 3 years later it wakes up and you're owned by China again. That's really harsh. They're not messing around. It's a military task. This is not amateurs trying to steal credit card numbers. This is a military really trying hard to gain persistence on your network, and that's what's happening. So People have been trying to study cyber attacks for a while, and one of the earliest ones was the Lockheed Martin kill chain, a way to organize cyber attacks. So it starts with reconnaissance, where they go get some information about your company, like email addresses. Then weaponization, they make an exploit of some kind into a deliverable thing like an email attachment. Then they then they deliver it, typically by phishing or some other technique. They somehow trick somebody in your network into running this code. Then they have exploitation. They exploit this vulnerability, and now they can do something they shouldn't be able to do on the victim's system. Now, then they install this malware, and the malware phones out to a command and control server, so your machine is now under remote control by the enemy, and they can issue a variety of commands. And then they have their acting on resources, doing whatever their goal is, which might be destroying your infrastructure or stealing your PDF files or any of a variety of other things. That was an early attempt to organize our thinking in a Lockheed Martin kill chain. I think a much more useful, much more modern technique is the MITRE attack. And we covered this a lot in the instant response class. This has something like 14 stages, and I can't really see it very well here. I'm going to open it up live in a browser. So I can zoom in on it. There we are. Enterprise Tactics. I think it's Tactics. Yeah, here we go. So this is just the modernization of this. So reconnaissance, we talked about, they're getting information. Then resource development, they're doing things like leasing cloud servers to use or something. Then they get access somehow. They get some way into your network, then they execute some code in your network, then they find some way to persist. So even if you reboot a server, they still are in there. They automatically relaunch the malware, then they escalate privileges up to root or administrator or domain administrator. They evade your defenses. They steal credentials so they can move around your network. They do discovery to find out what you have, what servers you have, what resources are available. They move from system to system through your environment, lateral movement. They collect information from your network. They have command and control servers on the outside controlling remote controlled bots inside your network. And then they exfiltrate data and have other impacts. And of course, not everybody does all these steps, but the idea is this organizes attack techniques and then defenses you can put on here. And this is extremely influential. The MITRE attack is the modern technique to organize your thinking on these things. All right. So here's the main advanced persistent threat groups that are at risk to America: China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. There are others, but these are the four major adversaries that attack American resources. And by the way, the most dangerous adversary on the internet is America, just like we're the most dangerous at other forms of warfare. We have a powerful military and we have a powerful cyber military. People often don't think of us as an adversary, but that's why when we accuse China of hacking us, the government typically says, we're hacking you, you're hacking us. And I think they're not lying. I think we probably are hacking them much more than they're hacking us. Anyway, all right, so here's the biggest threats: Russia. And one attack was their attempt to interfere with the 2016 presidential election. Then China had a lot of attacks on us, including stealing information from Lockheed Martin. North Korea made the WannaCry attack, which was a ransomware attack that brought down servers. I think that's the one that brought down hospitals in UK. And Iran leaked Game of Thrones strips and so on. These are some famous attacks. And so there's now a government agency, CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, led by Jen Easterly, that is there to help guide American companies into how to protect yourselves from these dangerous threats, which is really important. I mean, an average American company, like a corporation, doesn't have to have their own army protecting themselves from enemy soldiers, because we have the military for that. And this is the attempt to provide some help. So it's the case in companies. Every company has to hire their own security people because the government is not able to protect you in the cyber realm, but they're trying to, and this is the start. CISA is gathering information and helping guide companies in how to protect themselves. So they have the nation-state cyber threats, and here's the four: China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Now, there are some companies like CrowdStrike and Mandiant that give the adversary groups cute names, like animal names. Some people don't And Microsoft, who, as I mentioned, always seems to do everything in the stupidest way possible, has recently started naming them all after elements, like strontium and stuff, which is ridiculous because you can't Google that. You'll just find metallurgy about the elements. So now they've switched into two names like weather, like electric hurricane or something. But I don't know why everybody has to invent their own naming system, but they do. But a lot of them have these systems, which were pretty handy. You have Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear and so on. Those are all Russians for the bear. And you have kitten groups for Iran. And you have Panda for China, or maybe Dragon. So those were more useful names, I think. You can understand who they were. Of course, the problem of attribution is difficult. It is very hard to know who attacked you. And I was just reading a blog post earlier where they said, this appeared to be an Iranian group, but we think it was really Russia pretending to be an Iranian group, so they would get blamed for it. And that is, of course, something you can do, and it's very difficult to untangle. So Chinese attacks are the major threat to the United States. They are stealing our stuff like crazy. They're stealing all our intellectual property, and they're very open about it. Because in the Chinese system, they do not believe in patents and private ownership of valuable inventions like we have over here. They believe that stuff should be used by the state to benefit their people. And so in their system, it's not even wrong to steal things like proprietary information about Tesla cars or anything and just use it there. They don't feel like we really should have our American entrepreneurship system anyway, although now they're trying to implement more, to allow more of that, to try to revive their economy, which is in bad shape. Russia is probably even more hostile than China, but the Russian government sincerely believes that the United States democracy is a threat to their existence, and they must break down democracy, and that anything that harms America benefits Russia. So they do a lot of things here just to create chaos. That's why they tried to promote the election of Donald Trump, and they also tried to promote the election of Bernie Sanders to a lesser extent, because they really don't care who wins. They just want somebody incendiary that makes a lot of people angry to win, so that we will be more divided and angry and screaming at each other, and they see that as a benefit to them if there's more chaos here. So anyway, they also do destructive malware and a lot of ransomware. A lot of what comes in from Russia is just there to make money. Iranian attacks, it's growing, not as big as the other two, but they're increasing their skills. And North Korea, their economy is basically non-existent. They can't even grow enough food to feed their people. The people live in unbelievable, crushing poverty, and the government is funded almost entirely through cybercrime, almost entirely through stealing cryptocurrencies. They steal billions of dollars of cryptocurrency, and they fund their military with it. They become very effective at that. All right, and so the U.S. developed attack tools. Like I say, we are the leaders, and one of the main ones we did was this one in conjunction with Israel. We made Stuxnet, the world's first digital weapon. The Iranian government was making radioactive isotopes to create a nuclear bomb, and we didn't want them doing that, and Israel didn't want them doing that. So we deployed malware, which infected their isotope separators and destroyed them physically. And we managed to keep them off balance for a couple of years, where they were doing things like blaming their own scientists for sabotage and executing them. It took them a couple of years to catch on to what was really happening, and managed to delay a war between Iran and Israel by several years so far with this kind of attack. It was pretty amazing. And it set the standard that you can now destroy physical hardware with malware, which people didn't know was possible before this. And the way it worked was it caused the thing to spin up and spin down and spin up and spin down, which apparently could physically break the device. And it was really quite complicated and beautiful, advanced attack. Although I haven't heard a whole lot more physical infrastructure destroying attacks come out. Everybody thought they would, but I haven't seen a flood of these come out after this one. Anyway, we cover a lot of this. If you take the malware analysis class, we talk a lot more about these technical details. And the incident response class teaches a lot about the attack frameworks and such. And there's a cryptography class, which is offered this semester if you want to learn about that. Those other twos are not offered this semester. So I got a Kahoot about this stuff too. Let me bring that up, which is here. There we go. Cyberwar. All right, I'll give it a few more seconds. All right. All right, who hacked Google? Yep, China. All right. All right, which one of these is not part of the kill chain? Right, defacing the website is for amateurs. That's how you get caught. The APTs sneak in and they don't do anything obvious because they're trying to hide in there and not get caught. All right, what nation runs the equation group? That's us. That's what Kaspersky calls the NSA, or our cyber command. That is us. We are the equation group. All right. That's what our adversaries call it. It's not our own name. We call ourselves a cyber command or the NSA. All right. What nation runs Fancy Bear? The bears are Russian. All right. And what nation first destroyed hardware with a cyber attack? That's us. We are the most deadly military in many ways, including in the cyber way. All right. All right, a two-time winner. Yeah, all right. All right, so I recorded them. I'm going to stop.